We are here at the Fantasy Network to do a January wrap-up. I can't believe January is already almost over at the time of filming this. And I'm also going to be doing my February TBR, which has had a little bit of a shift. If you follow me on social media, I kind of give ideas of what I'll be reading next. And I've decided to mix it up a little bit, so I'm going to go over that here. But first, let's wrap up January and the first month of 2021. So this month, not a ton of variety. I read one massive book and then two books in one series, and I'm wrapping that up. And those were The Stone of Farewell and Two Green Angel Tower. Two Green Angel Towers, 520,000 words. I did review Dragonbone Chair. I read that right at the end of 2020, so it doesn't count for 2021 in January. But I've given a pretty good in-depth review on the Dragonbone Chair, non-spoiler, so you can go check that out if you'd like. I will be reviewing the entire trilogy. I was going to do Stone of Farewell and Two Green Angel Tower, but I think I'm going to let that first review breathe a little bit. And then probably after you see this video, you will be seeing a review for the entire trilogy of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. In short, if you're asking, it was 520,000 words worth it. I think it is the longest fantasy novel of all time. The answer is absolutely yes. I'm still very high on the series. I have some small critiques, but I think as a whole, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn is one of the best series I've ever read, and I think specifically Two Green Angel Tower, Book 3, is one of the best fantasy books I have read. While it does have a lot of the tropes that we know, and it does feel a little bit more classically paced, I think it just does and executes those things to a T and so well. And I'm excited to do an entire trilogy review. I won't be rehashing a lot of what I said about Book 1, so if you're thinking, oh, I've already heard all of it, that's not the case. There's a big difference between especially Book 1 and 2, and then on into 3. I think the Dragonbone Chair is the weakest of the 3, and I was very high on that book to begin with. And like I said, I do have some small criticisms, but overall I had a great experience with it. I definitely had a little bit of a post-series slump, as you would say, and that's totally acceptable because Tad writes some really engaging characters and a plot that ties up very nicely. So I will talk more about that in a review later down the road. Another book, and I read it in an hour, was Ice Dragon by George R.R. Martin. I wouldn't call it a short novel. I would say it's a short story, and it is predominantly for kids. And it was written, I believe, in 1980. I probably won't be doing a review because, like I said, it's a short story. But I guess I can kind of talk about it here. It's very interesting to see George R.R. Martin writing for kids because we're so used to the blood and the guts and the mature content and themes. I will say that I think there's like some violence as far as like the fallout of war and soldiers coming through the town. They're like missing limbs and stuff. I thought that was a little grody for like kids. Like I was like, wow, that's pretty intense. But at the very core of this, I think kids could connect with it. I would love to read this story to my future kids, hopefully, before bedtime. I think it's something that you can hand to a kid and they can read in a day or two and be really into it. And as an adult reading it, I still thought it was excellent. The character, Adara, is very different and is kind of a misfit in her own family and has one of the traits that Tyrion has in A Song of Ice and Fire. I guess I won't say it, but as soon as you read it, you'll know it. I really think you should pick up this book, and I'm saying that not only if you have kids, but as an adult, if you were a fan of George R.R. Martin's writing, you could get a lot out of this just for enjoying more content from George, because we haven't got anything new in like 9 years. Nevertheless, also the illustrations, I can't remember the illustrator's name, but there's an illustrated hardback, I think it's like $10 on Amazon. Absolutely gorgeous. If you're a sucker for illustrations like I am, I think you can enjoy it. It's a quick read. It's what I read right after Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn because I just needed to do something to kind of cleanse my palate and to get me out of my slump. And it was a nice little read, and I enjoyed it. I did. So at the time I filmed this, I won't have these books read, but by the time you see it, these books will be completed because I only have a few pages to go in The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. I think you've probably heard of it, Book 2 in Lord of the Rings, or technically 3 and 4, whatever. I'm reading Two Towers. I'm going to have that wrapped up before January's over. I'm having an absolute blast, and I've really become more of a Tolkien fan reading Two Towers. Read Fellowship. I enjoyed it. I have some thoughts. I'm probably going to be putting out a video about reading Lord of the Rings in 2021. Might get my friend Sir Ezra from Up Talking Tolkien. He's a pillar in the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien podcast universe, so I would love to have him on to talk about that. But I'll probably put out a video Probably not necessarily reviewing Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King, but once I finish Return of the King, I will more than likely do a kind of a wrap-up video and just my experience rereading it in 2021, and I'm definitely more in. I'm more into it than I've ever been. Something about Tolkien recently just like clicked with me, and maybe it was Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Maybe it's because I rewatched the movies recently, but just like the world building and the really subtle stuff that Tolkien has included and what he accomplished at that time, it's just so monumental. And I know we beat that horse to death, but I'm going to add my hat to the pile, and I'll go over that more in the future videos. So be looking out for some Tolkien content, which is, in my opinion, always a good thing. The other book that I'm finishing right here as January closes up, it's pretty short. It's like 100 and maybe 60 pages, and it is like a late 1800s French Gothic horror novel by Oscar Wilde, and that is, I always mess up the names, I gotta look at my phone, I always mess it up. The Picture of Dorian Gray. I always want to say like portrait, I don't know why, but The Picture of Dorian Gray was recommended to me, actually by multiple people, when we were just talking about Stephen King and just wanting to read a little bit more horror, a little more classic stuff, because I've been on a Tolkien kick. By the time you watch this, I'll have read it, so that'll be the last book I read in January, and I've heard good things. What I know of it, I think I'm going to really identify with it, and I think it's going to be something that I will probably review here on the channel in the future. And that wraps up January. I think it's a pretty strong month. I'm assuming Dorian Gray is going to be a pleasure. Two Towers I'm almost done with, and it's been excellent. It's a solid month to begin the year. I don't know if I could have really picked better hitters for this beginning month of 2021 after the dumpster fire that was 2020. Hey, 2020 was a great reading year for me, and 2021 is shaping up to be even better. So let's talk about my February TBR and what's coming down the pipeline that I'm reading. I was planning on reading Farseer trilogy. Robin Hobb is my most anticipated author that I was going to read this year that I have never read, and just knowing what I know of her and people who have recommended, it seems like she's kind of getting, like, it comes in waves with authors. Like, you know, you see like a ton of John Gwynne, or you see a ton of Tab Williams, and right now I just keep seeing Robin Hobb everywhere on BookTube and on reviews, and that's cool because I trust that I'm going to very much enjoy her. I know George R. R. Martin is a huge fan, and a lot of his recommendations, like Tab Williams and such, have been home runs with me. So I am looking very much forward to that. Unfortunately, I really want to get the third illustrated edition that just came out. I already bought the first two. They're on my shelves. The third one is coming out the March 3rd. So I didn't want to start the series like Feb 1 and be without the third book and then have to either get an ebook or wait on it. So I'm going to wait to begin the read, so when I get to the third, I have it in my hands. So my TBR for February has an asterisk next to it that I have to finish these books, and if I do, I'll be fitting Farseer probably the third or fourth week of February. So now you're saying, well, James, then what are you reading in February? And I'm here to tell you I got an answer. And it's getting moved up the list, and this is pretty big for anyone who's been around the channel, because I've talked about reading this for a while, and the original series, the previous series in this saga, has been monumental for really my community here on the channel and all my success, and he's one of my favorite authors, and I'm going to be reading Of Blood and Bone by John Gwynne, the Banished Lands sequel trilogy. All three books, I'm going to fit them in here in March. And I have never been so excited to return to a world as I am with The Banished Lands. The Faithful and the Fallen was my favorite completed series from last year in 2020, with Wrath winning my book of the year. It was to no surprise. I think John Gwynne is excellent at writing the stories that he wants to write. His pacing is relentless while still paying attention to character development. Probably one of the best combat, if not the best combat writer in the genre that I have read. But don't let that get it lost. Everything else get lost in that. I say that and people say, oh, those are the combat books. And I think I've done a disservice by griping on the combat so much. It's just something I personally enjoy. But John Gwynne isn't just popular because he writes really good combat. John Gwynne's popular because his character development is second to none, and also ties up plot points in a very meaningful way that really hits you in the feels. If you're reading John Gwynne, you're probably going through anguish at some point in the story. Why I like that, I don't know. I guess I'm a masochist. A Time of Dread, A Time of Blood, and A Time of Courage. I can't wait. All three are sitting on the shelf. They've been there for a while. They're beautiful books. The covers are great. And we're finally going to wrap up The Banished Lands here on the channel. So with 3 books, that's my goal in a month. The minimum is I always want to read 3 books, no matter how big they are. And after I finish those 3 books, I will probably be starting Farseer. I would say it's realistic to think that I'll finish 1 Assassin's Apprentice and then Royal Assassin. I think I will get those 2 in February. And then a stretch goal would be to get to the 3rd, but it doesn't even get here to March when I can read it, so it's not going to happen. I might sneak in another book that I have almost completed. Like I've just been slow to listen to the audiobook of it, and that is Leviathan Wakes Expanse book number 1. I love the TV show. I'm all caught up, and I will say it's been a little bit hard because the show's so good. I genuinely like to finish a show out, miss it, and then go to the books if I watch the adaptation before the original content. But when I'm working out, I throw on The Expanse every few days, and I think I have about 300 pages left of that. So I think I will be able to finish The Expanse book 1, Leviathan Wakes, here in February as well. So you have all 3 books with A Bug Bow by John Gwynne, the first 2 books in the Farseer trilogy, Assassin's Apprentice and Royal Assassin, and I'm hoping to wrap up Leviathan Wakes. That's a stacked month any way you cut it. And I'm ready. I'm ready for more books. This year is absolutely stacked for me as far as reads and the things that I'm trying to get off my TBR before I start Malazan at some point. At some point here. And I am reading Wheel of Time, by the way. I know I haven't done a lot of reviews for Wheel of Time here on the channel. It's something I'm going to catch up with. I've been doing content with Heroes of the Horn, who run a Wheel of Time podcast. If you haven't seen them, check out their channel here, Heroes of the Horn. You can also listen to them on iTunes, Podbean, anywhere you get your podcast. I am reading Wheel of Time for the first time ever with them. I had read all the way into halfway through book 5, and I stopped, and I'm letting that podcast get caught up. I think they'll be starting book 5 this month in February, so I will be probably picking up where I left off. So just know when I make these videos, I am reading the Wheel of Time in the background, just at a very slower pace, wherever I don't have to miss a lot of the details because of the podcast read along. I would really encourage you, if you're a Wheel of Time reader and it's your first time, or if it's your millionth time, I think checking out Heroes of the Horn is really cool. They have a dynamic on this podcast that Sir Ezra, who's a good friend of mine, he is an experienced reader of Wheel of Time. He's read the series multiple times. He's been on the Dusty Wheel, and he's just very knowledgeable and a great guy. And then the other host, which is Sir Matt, has never read the Wheel of Time. It's his first time, just like me, and I identify with him pretty well because of that. And it's just cool seeing someone that has read the series and hasn't, and the expectations versus reality. And they're very careful about not using spoilers, and Ezra is very protective of Dark Friends so that we don't get spoiled. So I would encourage you, if you enjoy the Wheel of Time, to or if you're wanting to get through it for the first time, to check out Heroes of the Horn. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because I am slowly getting through that series and enjoying it more and more, to be honest with you. I think it's a mixed bag. I have feelings on that I'll make a video about in the future, but I did want to throw that out there that I am currently reading that as well. Okay, I think that covers about everything. We wrapped up January, and by the time this comes out, I'll have started my February reads, which are pretty stacked, for sure. What are you reading? What did you read in January? What are you going to be reading in February? Please let me know down in the comments. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe. All the books I mentioned, for the most part, I believe I will be reviewing, whether it's as a trilogy as a whole for some of these, or book by book as I go. There will be some Wheel of Time content coming this year, and some collaborations for some Tolkien stuff. I got a lot of stuff planned. I have just shot about 4.5 hours of content with other content creators today, and now this is like hour 2 of me shooting my own. So it's an exciting time, not just for the Fantasy Network and me and myself and our community and our channel, right? But also just fantasy in general. I mean, what a time to be a fan. It's wonderful. So until I see you next time, be good, be safe, and hope to hear from you down in the comments, and hit like and subscribe if you'd like. And until next time, remember to always turn the page.